Welcome back again. We're now back into Marketing Management MBA course, lesson number 4, market research. We've just been talking about our market intelligence in the previous one, and obviously there we actually touched on market research as being very important. So what we're going to do in this particular module is go a little deeper into that and get more information on that, because it's so valuable about finding out about the market first. We spoke globally about markets as a whole. Now we want to talk about how we're going to research specifically into those markets. Our objective today: understand the role of market research in shaping managerial decisions, specifically those obviously directed towards the marketing. Get an overview of classical activities as well as practical tools and methods for marketing research, and be able to implement those studies, analyze, interpret the data, and present them. Questions we have: what constitutes good marketing research? What are the best metrics for measuring marketing productivity? And how can marketers access their return on investment of marketing expenditure? We're going to start off with a couple of examples. We tend to think that, especially big companies, that they know what they're doing, and they bring products out, and they don't bring them out sort of willy-nilly, and they clearly have analyzed their markets beforehand, and great new products are coming out all the time, very innovative, and that is enough. However, it's not the case. Beechcraft, in this particular case, came up with the idea, as new technologies were coming in, that they would basically replace a jet engined executive jet with one of these, a turboprop aircraft, very advanced in design. So this was actually the first civilian aircraft with carbon fiber composite airframe. The whole frame was made out of carbon fiber, not made out of steel. It had the canard design, the little wings at the front, the L-shaped wings, so we've got the winglets at the end, 2 turboprops that were mounted at the back, and the idea was that they would pull its way through rather than push. Research and development cost estimated about $500 million. And as it said there, for the pilot and passengers, really got everything. For the money, the performance just isn't there. This is the problem. This thing came out at $5 million. And for that, you can, at the time anyway, you could buy a regular jet. In other words, this thing didn't fit into the existing market that was there. Why? They did not analyze or research the market first. So the overall thing, it was a complete failure. It was a mistake, a $500 million mistake, because of one thing: lack of market research. In other words, they didn't find out from the consumer beforehand, would they want this kind of product? And not only that, would they be prepared to pay for it? There's a couple more here where we have Coke. Came out in the in the late 70s, early 80s. They obviously having lots of competition from others, Pepsi being specifically the main one. So they decided to launch a newer product, which was Coke executives decided to cease production of the classic cola in favour of the new Coke. The public was outraged, and Coca-Cola was forced to relaunch its original format almost immediately. So don't mess with success. What actually happened here was they launched a particular product based on some market research. They did some, but out of the 50 states in the US, they only checked about 3 or 4 states. In other words, the market research was very limited to a very small geographical area, or in that case, they preferred the new version, the new Coke, to the older one. I believe it was sweeter, but they hadn't checked it throughout the rest of the country. And obviously in a place like the United States, it's such a vast country, the market isn't the same everywhere. People from different states are totally different than those in others. Some from New York is very different in their culture and likings from somebody in California. Another example we've got here: cocaine, high energy drink. So 3.5 times the amount of caffeine as Red Bull, so pretty strong. But it was pulled from shelves in 2000 after they decided that it was illegally marketing their drink as an alternative to street drugs. In other words, something very strong. It's still available, but only online and only in certain stores in the US. So Redux Beverages does not plan to cease production, but they reckon there's no such thing as bad publicity. And perhaps the most extreme one is over here, Colgate. As we understand, we understand the idea of a brand extension, of where a brand can move across to other particular products. But if you think what Colgate is renowned for fresh breath, minty taste or something, and then transfer that where they decided that they would go into foods, in this case, the Colgate kitchen entrees, to get their idea that they thought that people would still accept Colgate, the name, for foods. The problem was obviously launching that people still had in their mind that this would be sort of a fresh minty taste and not exactly the kind of thing to get your taste buds tingling over a salad or another plate. Just again, no research, not done. To bring up another one, I suppose, that's current, as an example of this. If we look at Donald Trump, I'm sure most of us have heard of him. Trump started an airline some years ago called the Trump Shuttle, and with services from New York to other East Coast cities. And he actually bought originally for, I think, $365 million, a successful profit-making arm of Eastern Airlines. So profit-making. But within 18 months, it was bankrupt. Literally lost money. Why? Because he had decided that what people wanted was to get to these cities, which was 45, 50 minutes flying time away, in the lap of luxury. So he fitted big luxury, thick pile carpets in the aircraft, put it heavy, sophisticated decorations in the bathrooms, expensive food, and everything that literally adds weight to an aircraft, which is the antithesis of trying to keep an aircraft profitable flying. And not only that, but used old, inefficient aircraft to do it with. The upshot was it ran out of money because he didn't ask the customers what they wanted. It turned out what the customers wanted was just to be able to get from A to B, mostly business people, on a regular basis, early in the morning, in the evening, to go to and from work. What they didn't want was all of this nonsensical, heavy luxury, if you like. That was mostly what Donald Trump wanted. In other words, he didn't listen to his customers. If he'd have spoken to his customers first and found out what they wanted, maybe he would still have an airline. Returns on marketing actions. It's interesting this, if we think about it, the amount of new products that fail. We've looked at some examples of specific products and why they've gone under, but it's somewhere between 60 and 95% of all new products do not succeed in the marketplace. Why is this? Because, again, they haven't done the research before they started. It's estimated at least 50% of advertising has no effect. I'm sure you've been aware that there's advertising, we're surrounded by advertising. How many of it do we actually remember? If you wait during a commercial break on the television, whilst watching a movie, wait till the program is finished, go back to the movie, and then try and remember those adverts that you've seen and what were they, what were the brands. You'll find you will not remember most of them. 85% of price promotions, okay, I apologize for the spelling mistake, they lose money. And we can look at this later where we're talking about the difference between good and bad customers, but 85% of promotions lose money. So although maybe we get more sales, we finish up losing money maybe in the long run. And 97% of brands create 35% of the money. Why market research? Why is it so important? Well, it obviously improves the quality of our decision making in terms of what products we're bringing out, where we're selling them, how we're selling them, the pricing. It's so many things. It also helps us to trace problems so we can focus on the problems and then hopefully correct them. And also focus on keeping existing customers. Don't forget, we mentioned earlier that it costs at least 5 times as much to get a new customer as it does to keep an existing one. And it also helps us to understand changes in the marketplace, which obviously is very important for any company for their future if we know what is going on, and helps out survivability of the company. Our marketing research system, well, there's a few things obviously that we have to understand, that we do our market research, so this helps us understand better our customers. And obviously the better we understand our customer, the better we know what kind of things that they want. And this gives us insight with vast amounts of information. Insight isn't some magical gift. based on the information that we have actually gotten about certain things that we've investigated. So we have an example about how Gillette conducted market research on female razors, and this led to the company developing the Venus razor system, which now has more than 50% of the global market. So clearly it was able to show that there was a gap in the market that they could service. The definition of market research is the system. I'm sorry about the buzzing, we're having some work done here. Market research is the systematic design, collection, analysis, and reporting of data and finding relevant to a specific marketing situation facing the company. If we consider different types of research, it means many things. Obviously, there's working within our company, finding out what we can produce and what we think we need, but obviously we've got to go outside the company. And one of the first things that we have to do usually is check out our rivals, our competition, what it is they're doing. If you consider that this is a Samsung Galaxy, they come out with a new one every year. Is it by mere coincidence that Apple bring out a new iPhone every year? Well, obviously not. In other words, we're finding out what our rivals are doing, and that is a good starting point. We probably find we have many rivals, so we can take ideas from all of them and see what they're doing. And then obviously the internet, the general feeling online where people are discussing products that we're involved in, the industry that we're involved in. So we can getting a lot of ideas, and obviously using students and our marketing partners, especially if we're involved with companies like advertising agencies, because obviously they have other customers, and they are also are aware of what is going on the market, not just in our particular niche, but maybe in many other things that could affect our particular industry. The marketing research process, if you think about it, we start defining the problem. So the first thing is what we're actually after doing, and then coming up with some objectives. Once we've done that, we can divide that into a plan. Then we have to start collecting the information that we need. Once we have got the information, analyze that, and then present the findings, preferably in a nice way, and then make the decisions based on that. So I've got an example here with American Airlines. They want to determine how many first-class passengers would be interested in having limited internet access during the flight, and how much extra would they be willing to pay for that service. Now, American Airlines would have had to have invested $90,000 per plane. Now, obviously, that is a lot of money for aircraft if they're not going to be able to get anything back for it. So when we define our problem, we must focus our inquiry. We mustn't focus too broadly, because it's too much, then probably in a market that we can't actually fulfill. And obviously we don't want to be too narrow either, so we want to have enough information. So trying to find out everything about the first class travelers' needs is too broad, whilst trying to determine if enough passengers will pay $25 on a direct flight between Chicago and Tokyo to break even is too narrow, going back to our original example. So in this example, they agreed to define the problem as: will offering an in-flight internet service create enough incremental preference and profit for American Airlines to justify its cost against other possible investments in service and enhancement? In other words, improving the food or the service or wider seats or whatever other additional things that would be of interest to them. In other words, speak to the customers, find out what the customers want. This is what we're going to keep coming back to again and again. Step 2, develop the actual research plan. Where you're going to get the information from, how you're going to do it, what kind of approach you're going to do, and then obviously what kind of research results that you're after. So in the case of where are your sources, your primary data collected by you yourself, where you have to go out and get the data yourself. Secondary data, the data that is already available, either through government sources, databases, or online. The kind of research that you're going to do, if you're going to do observational, in other words, watch your customers, or you're going to use focus groups, surveys, behavioral data, experiments, and then the actual research methodology. Is it going to be a question of questions or qualifications or technical? And then the sample plan, how are you actually going to contact the people involved? Now, collecting the information, this is actually the most expensive step, and it's also the most prone to errors. But the problem is this is one of the most used. So obviously we can use the online surveys. Now, the questions have to be very carefully done, and it's the way of getting and approaching the people to actually do them. In other words, there's got to be something in it for them to want to be able to do it. And the questions that we have throughout all of these, however they're done, either in home surveys, telephones, or interviews, that you want the analysis, the information that you can actually use afterwards. It's no good saying, well, what would you like to come in before you come into our store, because you get such a variety of answers. So you need specific things and limit them. And of course, you don't want to have too many questions because it's going to be too much for the customers. They're only going to want to spend a minute or 2 minutes doing these kind of surveys and giving the information out. So you've got to make it as unintrusive as possible. And if we consider in-home surveys, again, it's very intrusive, and you've got to remember what kind of day you're going at and turning up at somebody's house asking them a barrage of questions. Same again with telephones. When you're phoning people, are they at work? Are they eating? Are they available to talk? So maybe the best is online, but again, online does have its difficulties. Once we have the information, then we need to actually analyze it. So develop summary measures, compute the average, the statistical analysis, the kind of decision models. In other words, what are we going to base our decisions on? If a particular percentage is 50% in one answer and 50 on another, how are we going to determine which is best for us based on that information? How to present the information as well. Now, what actually presenting the findings? Well, it's getting the raw data into something that we can actually see and present in a way that somebody can understand. So it's got to be presented in a nice way that other people that are looking at this don't just see a barrage of numbers. If it's presented in such a way that it's clear, it's understandable, you can see the preferences, if you like, of the customers, or the kind of costs involved that would entail, or the return that it's clear and easy to understand. After we've done that, we've done the research, now we have to make the decision. But the research itself should guide our decisions. It shouldn't really be designed to just support the decisions that we've already made, because that's a bias that we would already have. So the idea is to let it be unbiased in that and say, well, maybe we did think that it would show this, but if it does show that, then we base our decisions on what the information is given through the research, rather than sort of try and fit the results to the kind of decisions that we had already decided we want to make in the first place. So we've got some characteristics of good market research methods. The first one should be scientific, so a scientific method, rather than something, so in other words, something that's very specific, rather than open-ended questions. The research creativity, it should be creative so that it would give us some interesting results. Multiple methods, because all too often, if we're reliant upon one method, that can not go well for us. As we said in the case of the new Coke example, they just chose a particular area and it was too limiting. The interdependence of models and the data, so the model should go with the data that is coming in. The value and the cost of the information, and then a good dose of skepticism, because these things are never perfect. And of course, ethical marketing as well. It's quite interesting, but as we can see where maybe market research has gone wrong. A former market researching executive for General Foods concluded that Star Wars would fail at the box office. And why, maybe you're asking, that General Foods would be interested in Star Wars. There was a lot of, they wanted to get sell their merchandising. A lot of people felt that they weren't going to make any money on the merchandising. No one's going to buy these clothes, no one's going to buy these toys and model robots and fighter planes. And I think history has now shown that to be somewhat wrong. The film itself grossed 4.3 billion in box office receipts. His actual reasoning was that Americans, don't forget this came out in 1975, so his reasoning was Americans were looking for realism and authenticity because it just had the Watergate thing with it, with the problems that had gone on there. And furthermore, he stated that American citizens were suffering from post-Vietnam hangover and would not welcome anything with the word war in its title, that they were somewhat sick of that because of the war in Vietnam. Well, clearly, he wasn't correct. I think this was probably because this was more based on personal opinions and not based on sound scientific market research, which he should have done. And it's curious as well on the subject of Star Wars that the major companies like Hasbro were approached to produce the merchandising, the toys and models and things that go with this, and turned it down again because they felt it would not be profitable, that it would not be a successful film, and the opportunity was given to other smaller companies that literally made a fortune with it because they did see the potential in it, and the rest, they say, is history. Right, we have to measure our productivity for our marketing. So there's our marketing metrics which we have to use to measure the performance, and the marketing mix modeling, which we're going to look at. Now, the marketing metrics, we're always facing pressure to provide clear, quantifiable evidence as to how the marketing expenditure, in other words, the cost of advertisements and promotions, etc., are helping their firm be more profitable. And as we've seen, we've already noticed that, certainly in the case of promotions where we're offering discounts and stuff, that it's quite rare that they actually produce a profit. So it's very important that we get this information and that it's a quantifiable evidence of the possibility of being profitable with it. So we need to quantify and compare and interpret these things, our metrics, so that we can see how it's going to affect our marketing performance. And this, obviously, we need to do this, especially before we start spending large amounts of money on our marketing efforts, to know that we're spending it in the right place beforehand. So marketing metrics can either be external, such as those we've got here, or internal. So internal can include employees' awareness of goals, resource adequacy, or autonomy, and especially that with resources adequacy. If we're considering in terms of a marketing budget, arguably, if you ask most marketing people, I'm sure most would probably agree that there's never enough money for the budget. It tends to be that it's controlled by higher ups. They decide the budget before they've decided what the goals are for the budget, or the marketing has to achieve with that limited budget. But unfortunately, this is how things work in the real world. The external ones, so external metrics, awareness, in other words, how many people are aware of our company, our name, our product, our services, what we do, what we're about, what are our values. That's the first thing. The market share that we have. The relative price of our products and services compared to the others, the number of complaints that we're getting, consumer satisfaction. Now, consumer satisfaction is a whole new chapter just on its own. So we're going to have to look at that apart, about how do we achieve that and how do we measure it. Total number of customers, the perceived quality, and again, we have different definitions of this thing with the quality, but how it's perceived by the consumer. The loyalty and retention of our customers, and the relative perceived value that we're giving. So those are some of the things that will decide our marketing metrics. Now, the marketing mix model, the results of the marketing mix helps us guide allocation on marketing budgets. So with the right model, marketers can determine how much each marketing element, in other words, a sales promotion, a particular advertisement or trade promotion, is going to impact the revenue on a particular product. So the amount of money that's spent advertising a particular product will lead to a certain amount of sales in that product. However, as we say with these things, they're never perfect. So marketing mix modeling has three shortcomings. So as outlined by Dave Reibstein, who's done a study of this. The first one, it focuses on incremental growth. In other words, slightly increasing the budget will slightly increase the awareness of the product. but it doesn't count on long-term sales. So over a longer period, where once a particular awareness has increased, it fails to account for that, because obviously awareness will reach a plateau and may need a lot more input of money to make more people aware of it that maybe are outside their particular market. It integrating multiple metrics, so satisfaction, awareness, and brand equity. Well, it's limited for those things. Yeah, so it's very much so on a particular thing such as awareness against expenditure. And all these models fail to incorporate metrics related to its competitors or the trade as a whole, or the sales force. The sales force obviously can make a difference. If you have good salespeople, you're more likely to sell more. If you have bad, unqualified, untrained salespeople, probably sell less regardless. Now, marketing dashboard. Marketing dashboards are very similar to the instrument panel of an aircraft. The idea is obviously that we have various different kinds of promotions, sales that we're operating. We have to be able to see, not only see very easily, because don't forget, in our marketing department, we're going to have to present our findings based on the research that we've done. So if we can have a dashboard where we've seen the effect of each of the marketing efforts that we've been doing on a particular methodology, what revenue has this produced, where we are in market share, how this is going, what is the actual volume of sales that we have on each particular one. Now, this is a lot of information to assimilate, and because the information usually comes in the form of vast amounts of figures, percentages, numbers of respondents, etc., we need to have a clear way of presenting these things. Now, the dashboard can be designed to provide information in real time so we can better understand the market, but also better understand the results that we've got. So as the information comes in, it can be easily assimilated onto our dashboard. It's nicely presented. And obviously from our marketing side, once we've done this, and maybe we've discovered that certain market research shows where money should be better spent in certain areas, we have to be able to present this in a logical, clear fashion to either the marketing director, the marketing manager, or maybe the CEO or the chief financial officer. Now, especially if it's the case of someone who's not involved in marketing, if we merely gave a load of data to somebody and asked them to sort of expecting them to understand it and come up with logical reasoning as to why they should expend money on a particular venue or type of marketing, it's not realistic. If we can show this in a more visual, clear method, where it's quite clear in big blocks or in circles, so I can have the pie charts or the bar charts, that they can see very clearly that this particular amount of money invested gives this amount of return, and therefore these are the priorities that we should be doing. This will produce so much growth, this will produce so much sales. So obviously this is showing historical information that we have found by the market research, but obviously the method of its presenting, it's much easier to see if growth is increasing over time. We can extrapolate so on these images, and it's much clearer, and we're far more likely to be able to take advantage of the information that we've received through these market research methods, so that we can get the particular money focused and resources onto the things that we feel are where we want to be based on the research. And this can be for new products, this can be for new areas, new markets, new customer bases, different types of advertising, etc. Because we have the methodology proven by good solid research and a method of presenting in a clear way to the right person that should be seeing it and has control over these things. So this is why the actual method of presenting this is hugely important. It has to be clear, has to be visual. And this way, it will enhance the quality of the decisions that we're getting and make the possibility of our future marketing efforts much more precise. Right, if we look at this is what we call the marketing measurement pathway, where we have different metrics based on the information that we've looked. Now, technically sound, but ad hoc efforts across different silos. So they are silos, but if we look at each one, where we have the customer metric, in other words, the actual customers that we're using, the metrics on the unit, the things that we're dealing in, the cash flow, in terms of obviously the money that we're spending, and obviously the brand. So all the different brand and what the parts are of the brand. Now, each of those, if we look at the customer metrics, well, we're looking at attitudes and behaviors and how people are changing their ideas, what satisfaction has been experienced, and the hierarchy of those effects. In other words, what is more important to the customer. Those are our customer metrics, and that will give us specific information about our customers. Now, if that is what we're going for. So these are the customer metrics on this kind of marketing measurement. If we move over now to the unit metrics, well, we have the particular product and category sales, the amount that we're selling in each of our categories or products. We have the marketing cost per unit, how much it's costing us to market each particular product. And then the margin optimization, in other words, the profits that we're making from those. Now, obviously for each department, this is going to be much more important for the financial department. The cash flow as well, the cash flow metrics, the program and the campaign, the return on investment for each type of program that we've seen, the media mix model, so how much is going to be done online, how much is traditional media, and the portfolio optimization. In other words, within a particular portfolio, how much we're going to be spending on each one and what initiatives we're operating within them. And then also, we then go on to the brand metrics. So we have brand imagery and attributes. In other words, what people see in the brand, what is it that we're trying to get across about our brand. The equity drivers, what sets our brand up as a higher value than other parts of the brand mix. And then the financial valuation based on those efforts that we've done in producing the brand and what is the valuation of the brand that produces. The problem is this can produce, if we did these isolated hundreds of different reports based on this, obviously it can be very difficult for us to analyze and see this as a global picture. So what we need to do is to have all of these particular metrics and then use these in a particular way to present them to get the required marketing mix that we're looking for, whereby the customer metrics back up the unit metrics, back up by the cash flow metrics and the brand metrics. So it's a little confusing, but it does show how much is involved and how important this all is. So that's the end of this particular unit, and see you in the next one. Thank you.